Hey, it's Lemon. Welcome to the Backlogs. Hope you're doing well. Now I know what you're thinking. To what do I owe the pleasure of getting not one, but 2 Dark Souls videos in the same month? Well, if I'm being honest, it's been a bit stressful over at Backlogs HQ these last few months, and I'm just looking to release some steam and pour into my creative outlet. And when I'm stressed, I like to play my favorite game in ways that I haven't tried, hopefully learning something new in the process. And today, that looks like using only spears in Dark Souls 1. Turns out, all those comments I keep getting were correct. Spears are actually way better than I ever gave them credit for. So today, we're gonna give them their due. Can you beat Dark Souls 1 with only spears? You sure can. Now let me show you how. Now then, for the more semantic of you in the audience, I'm gonna take the cop-out of starting the challenge run once we reach Firelink Shrine, since none of the starting classes have a spear, and that's the soonest I can get my hands on one. However, for those of you who refuse to let yourself have any amount of fun, there is a way to get past the Asylum Demon without killing it. Technically. Essentially, you just kill it with black firebombs, then immediately quit out while it's still in its dying animation. This will cause the game to bring the Asylum Demon back to life, which means you technically haven't hurt anything without a spear. But at the same time, the game still thinks it's dead, which means Oscar now has the Big Pilgrim Key. Which means it's a simple matter of waving at the Asylum Demon as you walk by to open the back door and leave the arena, giving you the freedom to come back and fight him legitimately with a spear at your leisure. So, with our feet firmly planted in Lordran, let's start this run properly. You've got a whopping 10 choices of spears to choose from throughout the run, with 2 of them being available to you right out the gate. If you run on down to the cemetery, you can grab the winged spear, and if you make your way into the Undead Burg, the male undead merchant sells them for a cool 600 souls. I mean, I guess you could grind out a spear from the spearman above the shop, but you'd have to be some sort of madman to do something like that. Look, I'm about 50% done with editing episode 2 of the Dark Souls Region Lock. The VODs are all on the second channel, and technically all the RuneScape Region Lock series go months without uploading, so just be patient. Stop yelling at me! So, let's talk about the spears. Not particularly strong, they tend to require a mixture of dexterity and strength to wield. And while they may not do much damage, their true strength lies in their ability to turtle. That, and their incredible reach. Gone are the days of getting slapped 7 times in the face by a broken sword hollow. The movesets themselves are pretty lackluster, and tend to be a poke and a stronger, slower poke. Nothing special to see here. At least, that's what I thought. In fact, that's probably one of the main reasons I always dismissed the spears, as I just assumed they were only good for turtling single targets at medium distance. In reality, the spears are as varied as they are numerous, and each one brings something unique to the table. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. For now, let's talk about our starter choices. The main difference in the 2 starters is their stats. The basic spear has low strength and dex requirements, so almost every class can use it outright. The winged spear, on the other hand, does a little bit more damage, but needs 15 dexterity and is slightly heavier. The better damage isn't anything worth talking about, and the movesets are exactly the same, so it's really just a matter of preference which one you decide to use. Now then, before we get any farther, I've got a bit of a spicy take. When it comes to spear runs, shields should be allowed. I know, but hear me out. One of the spear's primary strengths is the fact that it can turtle. Without that, you might as well just be doing a straight sword only run where you can only use the poke attacks. And no, I'm not doing that. Don't even ask. And because this is just for fun, and we're trying to showcase the spears, I'm not going to remove one of their best strengths on a technicality. So, with that out of the way, and my viewership retention now in shambles, let's talk about general tips for making a spear build. First off, unless you've got a very specific spear in mind, chances are you're going to be putting points into strength and dexterity pretty equally. There's a few exceptions to this rule, but we'll talk about them when we come to it. As for armor, a spear build can easily use all 3 types. So, no matter if you prefer light, medium, or heavy, you're in good hands. Personally, I like medium armor, since the ability to turtle means I don't have to rely on dodging nearly as much, and the extra defense medium armor provides gives me a bit more wiggle room when I make silly mistakes. There, see? Even Dark Souls wants me to use shields for this run. Actually, we should talk about those. There's 2 things you want to look at when picking a shield. The damage reductions and the stability. Damage reduction is pretty straightforward. A shield that has 100% physical damage reduction takes no damage from physical attacks. With this in mind, you'll probably be switching between 2 or 3 shields depending on what you're fighting. The shield I'm using now works great against the Knights and Hollows, but bringing it into the Moonlight Butterfly fight would be a mistake. The other thing you want to look at is stability, which is also pretty self-explanatory. The higher the stability, the less stamina damage you'll take when blocking with the shield. So long as you have stamina, you can block almost every attack in the game. But if your shield stability or your stamina are too low, the enemy's attack will bring your stamina bar to 0, and the attack will go through. This is where that medium or heavy armor comes in to save the day, by the way. So, now that you know what to look for, let's talk about the next few spears we have available to us. There's the pike, which is sold by Andre for 2,000 souls, and if you hug the left wall of the Darkroot Garden, there's this passage here where we can use self-defense against this twin-headed snake and collect the partisan. Both of these spears are interesting for their own reasons. The pike is twice as heavy as most of the spears, but it has even more reach and has a sprint attack that does a little charge. It's garbage and doesn't work well, but the extra reach is still nice. Meanwhile, the partisan happens to be one of my favorite spears in the game, and the reason is simple. It has a sideswipe attack. Who says spears are only for single targets, eh? In any case, let's move forward. Like any weapon in Dark Souls, it's important to note that there's a time to lock on and a time to free aim. But never has this been more true than with spears. Because their hitboxes are so precise, locking on to highly mobile enemies tends to cause more misses than hits. I highly recommend free aiming whenever possible when it comes to the bosses, and doubly so when you're fighting something low to the ground. You can absolutely hit them if you're free aiming, but the lock-on makes you thrust your spear at about chest height every time. No idea why. But after slowly poking the gargoyles full of holes, that's one Bell of Awakening complete. Not even close. I took a slight detour to kill Havel because heavier armor shouldn't have to mean slower movement, then went after the Moonlight Butterfly, who is not only great for showing how even a busted up wooden shield can be valuable if it has high magic defense, but also because the Moonlight Butterfly soul is the key ingredient to one of the stronger spears in the game, if you've got the build for it anyhow. But we're a bit of a ways from that. For now, we just need to push forward, poke some demons to death, make sure not to forget the doll, then back to Lower Undead Burg where we make quick work of all the thieves and dogs. Fun fact, the partisan's swipe attack can go around shields. Or at least, it certainly seems that way. More testing needed. Fighting the Capra demon is easy enough since we can turtle through the dogs with minimal effort, and Capra itself is actually quite easy when you don't have to worry about maneuvering in his tiny arena. At this point in the run, we're just playing as normal. And while you're not going to be speedrunning anytime soon, slow and steady progress is still progress. And with Blighttown rapidly approaching, it's time to grab a few items to ease our suffering. If we head on down the Butcher's Trash Chute, we can find ourselves a free Spider Shield, which is 100% resistant to poison and toxic, and if you're brave enough to make your way through the basilisk-infested sewer area, you can grab the Ring of the Evil Eye for the occasional bit of health regen. We can also stab Lautrec in the chest and grab the Fat Ring for a little extra health and stamina, if we're feeling spicy, but that's more of a personal vendetta thing at this point than anything else. Speaking of vendettas, I cannot emphasize enough how good it feels to bring slow and impending doom to each and every one of these blowdart snipers. Sleep well, every player who screamed in frustration trying to make your way through Blighttown. You have been avenged. I grind some slugs of the swamp, which is more carefree than usual due to turtling and healing all the poison damage with every kill, then slowly but steadily slash my way through Quelaag's health bar. 2 bells rung, and just like that, we're almost at the halfway point. We grab a few extra souls from Ceaseless Discharge to help round out our build, and it's at this point I can finally use my pike. Yay. Sarcasm aside, that reach could really make the difference for some players, especially when it comes to enemies like the Snake Men, who have weapons with longer reach. And the pike does have the best damage of all the spears we've collected so far. The weight is atrocious, but it's not like turtles are known for their dodge rolling. And now for the one spear that you all knew about already. Kill this here mimic, and you can get yourself a real live genuine lightning spear, which is just the regular spear tuned up to +10 and then infused with lightning. Is it good? I guess. I mean, it's not bad per se, but the thing about lightning is that it really shines for builds that have low stats. Not I, said the lemon. Glass cannon, baby! As I quietly suggested in my last video, elemental damage in Dark Souls 1 is... how do I keep this low-key? I know. A plague upon the human race, and I hope it dies a slow and painful death. Much like this poor bastard, am I right? I don't know what they were thinking, but elemental damage in Dark Souls is a double-edged sword. If you've been putting all your stats into things like vitality and endurance, then an elemental weapon is great for you, because the only way to improve them is by upgrading them, not by increasing your damage stats. Unless you've imbued your weapon with magic or faith-based enchantments, which act completely different. No, I don't know why. Go ask your mother. However, while these weapons will now give you a competitive edge, the only way to get them is to either get all the way to Anor Londo, or sequence break the game and head down into the catacombs to find the blacksmith there and beg him for a fire weapon. And at that point, are you really coming out ahead? Or are you just keeping pace with everyone else, but with several extra steps? Look, I'm a simple man. I just want to hit stuff and watch it die. And if I need a spreadsheet to help explain how to upgrade something, and then 3 more spreadsheets to explain how the damage works, you lost me 4 spreadsheets back. Now, if you want a fancy electric or fire spear, I'm not here to tell you you're wrong. I'm just telling you that there's an easier way to do things. But don't worry, that lightning spear we picked up won't rot in our bottomless box forever. It has a very important task to fulfill, just not yet. For now, just relax and enjoy one of the easiest runs of the painted world you've ever seen. The Pussman can be safely popped from a distance, dragon butts can be tickled into submission, and fluffy tails can be chased. It's gonna be a good day. At least, it was supposed to be. Shame the spear does extremely little poise damage, and it takes half of Priscilla's health bar to get her to drop invisibility. Ah well, they can't all be easy. Serves me right for skipping the bone wheels, I suppose. But with that little side quest done, we've got 3 more stops to make before we get to the halfway point of the game. The first is the Demon Imps. If you're willing to grind them out, they can actually drop their spears. The damage isn't particularly good, and they require Demon Titanite to upgrade, so that sucks, but they certainly look cool. Also worth noting, this spear can be bought from Shiva of the East down in Blighttown if you're in the Forest Covenant. And according to the wiki, this spear has the longest reach in the game, even longer than the pike. So if you're super keen on keeping enemies as far away as possible with melee attacks, this is as good as it gets. The second thing we need is the Silver Spear, which can only be gotten by farming these Silver Knights. Come on, baby, give me that region-locked luck! Well, not quite what I had in mind, but that's actually an improvement. More stability and lighter, the best of both worlds. And wouldn't you know it, almost immediately afterwards, the Silver Knight Spear makes an appearance. We may have used up all of our item drop luck, but it was worth it. Probably. Unlike the other spears, the Silver Knight Spear requires Twinkling Titanite to upgrade, but it's well worth the extra effort it takes to get those. Because not only is the damage the spear does more than any other spear we've collected thus far, but it also has the Divine status, which means it'll help us keep skeletons from reviving when we get to that point. And considering you can get Twinkling Titanite from the giant blacksmith here in Orlando, or just farm it out of the giant knights nearby, there's really no reason not to max the Silver Knight Spear out immediately. Just a great spear all around. Definitely my favorite of the bunch. But before we go, we've got one more thing to collect. We take our lightning spear to the blacksmith, have him break it back down to a spear plus 10, then have him turn it into the Moonlight Butterfly Horn. Another spear that uses Demon Titanite for upgrading. This one is unique because it deals pure magic damage. And looking over its requirements, you can tell this spear was made with squishy mages in mind. It's one of the lighter spears, only requires 12 strength to wield in one hand, and has incredible intelligence scaling. It's also very long, which makes it great at keeping pesky enemies away from your juicy mage meats. But that'll have to be a weapon showcase for another day, because despite our spear collection being incomplete, at this point, our build is more or less finished. There's a few more items we'll be picking up along the way to improve it, but this silver spear is maxed out in both damage and upgrades, and the silver shield we found is also a top tier shield. Now I know what you're thinking, why is Lemon fighting Super Ornstein? Wouldn't Super Smo be much easier? And yes, you're absolutely right. Super Ornstein is, in fact, a super pain in the dick. His thigh gap causes some real problems when it comes to hitting him with our spear, and his hitboxes are complete garbo. But it's not an easy fight we're looking for here. What we're really after is Ornstein's soul, and the Leo Ring. The Leo Ring is particularly good in the hands of a spear user, giving you an additional 40% damage whenever you do counter damage. For those that aren't aware, Dark Souls does this thing where you get extra damage if you hit an enemy in the middle of one of their attacks. The Leo Ring enhances that. And considering spears can turtle and attack an enemy in the middle of their animations with little to no risk, you're essentially getting a free power within boost without the health degeneration. And with Ornstein's soul now in hand, we could take any other plus 10 spear we have and upgrade it into the Dragon Slayer Spear. This weapon is an odd one. It's the only weapon in the game with scaling lightning damage. But, counterpoint, it's outperformed in almost every way by other spears. It's incredibly heavy, has extremely high stat requirements to even use, and the lightning damage only scales with faith, a stat you probably haven't been pouring into at all up to this point. And even if you were building around this particular spear, its lightning damage is outperformed by the Demon Spear unless you have more than 42 faith. Which if you do, what are you doing? Now, it does have a lightning attack, which will actually be useful to us in a minute, but it should be noted that using this attack costs 20 durability. The Dragon Slayer has 300, so you can cast it plenty of times, but yeah, just be prepared to repair your spear if you plan on using that. In any case, we use said lightning spear to give Guinevere a case of the vapors, then visit Gwendolyn. It's a short visit. After that, it's time to start hunting down all the Lord Souls. My personal preference would be to start with Nito, because we have a maxed out spear that can keep skeletons from reviving, and also because you can skip pretty much the entire catacombs if you know where to fall. I'll be honest, from this point on in the run, we're more or less just cleaning up shop and moving our way towards the finish line. Your stats and weapon of choice should be more or less complete at this point, and now all that's left to do is enjoy the perks of using a spear. Nito goes down with minimal issue, and is even easier if you have a shield with high magic defense, Seath's fight becomes nothing more than pressing the attack button over and over again for 30 seconds, and the run down to the bed of chaos is less of a boss gauntlet and is more akin to a series of poorly remembered dreams. There's a few hiccups here and there, with the spear's extremely tight hitboxes making a few of the fights a bit rocky at times, but all in all, using a strong spear and picking the correct shield for whatever boss is in front of you will carry you lazily across the finish line of the base game. So, with the base game complete and the DLC's shadow slowly creeping up on us, let's talk about the last few spears of the game and why they are or aren't worth your time. There's 2 spears remaining, the Channeler's Trident and the 4-pronged plow. The Trident, aka Dark Souls Volution, is probably the more interesting of the 2. In order to get one, you'll need to grind channelers. A lot of channelers. My only advice is to set up the stairs in such a way that you can reach 2 of them with each run, make sure you've got 10 soft humanity and the golden serpent ring, and then just pray to RNGesus like you've never prayed before. When you do eventually get it, you'll notice that it's another spear that requires high intelligence to use, and that's because it does some pretty hefty magic damage. Not Moonlight Butterfly levels, mind you, but still. The Trident has 2 strengths the other spears can't boast. The Channeler Dance, which gives allies, and only allies, around you a 20% boost to damage for about 30 seconds, and its one-handed strong attack, which hits not once, but 3 times. Overall, it's a meme weapon more than anything due to the rarity, but if you're lucky enough to get one, I envy you. The final spear of the game is another Trident, or rather a quadrant? Is that right? That doesn't feel right. Whatever, it's a pitchfork. Dropped by the demon shrubberies in the DLC, this thing is just another basic spear, but with one slight change. It's 2-handed strong attack. Simply press the button and fuck! I'm fine. It's fine. Just like the shrubs themselves, if you miss with the attack, you fall flat on your face, which is hilarious. But if you hit, you do strong damage and don't fall over. Risk versus reward. Now, is it stronger than the Silver Knight Spear? Actually, yeah, by about 30 damage if you could believe it. But is this enough of a difference for you to grind for it, grind out all the materials you need to upgrade it to plus 15, and then get to use it on all of 3 bosses? I'll let you decide. Speaking of upgrades, there's one more thing we should discuss. As you might have noticed, there are several spears that require Demon Titanite to upgrade. But, as you make your way through the game, there's only enough Demon Titanite to upgrade 1 boss weapon per new game cycle. Right? Wrong. For those that are unaware, the Titanite demon down in Lost Izalith is different from its brethren because it respawns. It's also super hard to kill. But if you want to test out all those boss weapons without getting into New Game Plus for more Titanite, this is the way you get it. But, with that said, that's pretty much all the knowledge I have about spears. They're criminally underrepresented in the player base, do some pretty great and consistent damage when you give them a chance, and are easily one of the better weapons in the game for players who follow the mantra of slow and steady wins the race. Combine that with an understanding of your enemies and what shields to combine with your spear, and you'll be cruising through Lordran without a care in the world. And there you have it. How to beat Dark Souls 1 with spears. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you learned something new today, or at the very least gained a new appreciation for the dagger on a stick. This weapon class is actually a lot of fun when used properly, and it makes me wonder if I missed out when I ignored the spears of Dark Souls 2 and 3. Maybe we'll get to find out in the near future. If you have any insights about spears you'd like to share with the class, feel free to share them in the comments below. I'm sure there's at least 1 or 2 things I missed. And if there's another weapon type that you feel is underrepresented that you'd like to see me cover, go ahead and write that down there too. I'm really digging this whole relaxed run and exploration style we got going on here, and wouldn't mind doing a couple more videos. But other than that, that's all I've got. Take care of yourselves, be good to one another, and I'll see you all again soon.